today, or tonight, we have a great welcoming person. He's a cybersecurity person. He's an expert. We'll love him. And here comes our favorite, Mr. Dave.
Mr. Dave, come on up, Mr. Dave. Thank you, Ethan. Good job, buddy.
That's awesome. Dude, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's one thing I am not is an expert. I am not an expert. But I will take it. You want to call me an expert in anything? I will take it. I will take it. Well, are you a Broncos fan? Oh, that's right. You're a Chiefs fan. Oh, gosh. Hey, how about that Super Bowl? It was rigged. It was rigged. Yeah, I thought it was rigged too. No, I actually didn't. Hey, what else is today? Do you know what else aside from Valentine's Day? What else is today? Okay, it is Wednesday. What was that? Today's Ash Wednesday. Yeah, today's Ash Wednesday. Do you guys know what is Ash Wednesday? Do you know what it is? Anybody? Take a stab. Ash Wednesday. You what? You burn things. Good job, Grady. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, Grady. Ladies and gentlemen, Grady. You burn things. No. It is actually, Ash Wednesday is actually a special day. If you were raised in the Catholic Church, you probably know what Ash Wednesday is about. It's actually a point where you get an opportunity to think before Lent. You guys know what Lent is, right? What's Lent? What do we do usually with Lent? You give things up, right? You find something in life that you really like and you just say, you know what? Just like Jesus did for 40 days, 40 nights, I'm going to fast. I'm going to give something up in a way to remember Him and honor Him, right? So today is Ash Wednesday. So if you hear about it, a little history lesson on why that is what it is. So, all right, cool. So let's get into things a little bit. All right, favorite book or story? Show of hands. Who's reading a good book or a good story right now? You're writing one. Okay, super cool. Can I ask what it's about?
It is basically a horror thriller story that I'm writing about.
Okay.
It has to do with military and has to do with a secretive murder that he doesn't find out till later.
Ooh. So for those of you that didn't hear the answer, she's writing a thriller story, and I can't wait to eventually read it because she will let us read it. What else? Who else is reading a good story? What about over here, story-wise? Don't be shy. You're like, what are you reading? The Twilight series. Yeah? Good. Why do we read books? Why do we read stories? What is it about a story that keeps us coming back to it? You don't? Who said you don't? We had this conversation last week with this side over here. We determined that this group on the couch, you guys don't read. They said they read. Yeah. Why do we read stories? If you read stories, why do you read stories, Tristan? Why do you read stories? To get away from life. What keeps you coming back into a story, though?
Kind of interest and also kind of feel into the book.
Yeah, you get an interest, right? You learn something, you have an opportunity to grow, you're kind of transported to a place that maybe you haven't been before. That's why we read stories, right? So tonight, what I want to get into a little bit, who's familiar with Paul in the Bible? Don't worry if you're not, but who's familiar with Paul? What do we know about Paul?
He's a guy.
Okay, we're on a good start here. He's a guy. Paul's a guy. Ladies and gentlemen, again, give it up for Grady. Another round of applause. Round of applause. AKA Saul. In the Bible, he was also known as Saul, right? What do we know about Saul? Aside from Breaking Bad. Like, we're not going down Breaking Bad route. But what do we know about Paul in the Bible? Who knows? Anybody? Throw it out.
He constantly asked God for forgiveness.
Yeah, he wasn't a good dude, was he? Right? He killed Christians. So Paul in the Bible, if you know anything about it, he was a Jew, and he grew up in a home that was based more on the law. And when we talk about the law, we're talking about kind of this thing with the Old Testament, right? So if you were to break down, when somebody talks about the law of the Bible, they're usually talking about like the Ten Commandments or the Old Testament of the Bible. The New Testament is based on more the love of Jesus, right? And Paul was a lawyer, and he saw all of these people breaking the laws and decided to really persecute them, do bad things. In some cases, in the book of Acts, Paul was actually referred to, I don't want to misquote this, but he was referred to as a religious terrorist in the book of Acts, right? It sounds like a pretty bad dude. When you call somebody a religious terrorist, that's usually not a good thing. That's usually a pretty bad thing. But Paul, going down his thing, he eventually was going down a journey, and he had a divine intervention. He actually ran into God. He had a spiritual run-in with God, where God kind of changed the way he thought about things. He had this big spiritual intervention, and he changed the way he thought about things. And actually, Paul went on to write a lot of different books in the Bible. And one of those books happens to be one of my favorites, which is Romans, right? The book of Romans. And what is so specific about Romans tonight that I wanted to share with you is the way Paul talks about Romans, and he kicks it off. And I don't know how to change slides. Somewhere we have a clicker, right? Do I have a clicker to change the slides? Do I clap and it changes? Uh-oh. I don't have a lot. I just have a few. Nope, not that one. Not yet. We're not there yet. We're not there yet.
That was there.
Oh, they're out of order. Let's go here first, all right? We'll go here first, right? So Paul, when he kicks off Romans, Paul uses 3 very specific words because he's excited about it. He goes back to the Roman church and he says, hey, I've got something very important to say. Not a Ron Burgundy moment, if you know what I'm about to say. It's not a very important announcement to go into a cannonball. He's got a very important announcement to share with the Roman church. And he uses 3 very specific words. He says, hey, number 1, I'm eager to share this. Number 2, I'm indebted to Christ to share this. And number 3, I'm unashamed to share what he has to say, which is a really cool thing, right? He's like, hey, I've got a story. I ran into God. I was doing all sorts of bad things, but that's not the case anymore, okay? So you're probably thinking and asking yourself, like, hey, what does this Paul story have to do with me and Romans and all that other stuff? And well, what is this thing doing? That's super annoying, dude.
I don't know how to use this one to be honest. Oh, there we go.
That's totally better. Thank you. That's outstanding. Oh, we're going backwards.
Oh, brother. Oh, brother. Uh-oh.
Tristan, you gotta swipe, don't click.
Oh, we were clicking.
Uh-oh.
Man, I got a feed within a feed. That's outstanding. Go to high school. Go to high school.
Yes, we do.
There we go.
There you go.
Stop working it.
Technical moment. We'll be there in a second.
We'll get there.
All right, go there. Start right there. Perfect. So no clicking. We're only swiping.
Just swiping.
I love it. All right, thanks for that. We'll go back to those 3 words. All right. So you're probably thinking to yourself, like, what does this have to do with me? And we'll talk about that here in a second. But who's a little brother, little sister in the room? Show of hands. Little brother, little sister? Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. What is life like as a little brother and a little sister? Who said terrible? Did you say terrible? Milka. You said terrible?
Yeah.
Why is it terrible?
Because they pick on you.
They pick on you?
Have you met my brother?
I have met your brother. Yeah, I know who your brother is. You pick on your brother? Yeah. Everybody has their own story about being a brother or a sister, okay? I'm a brother. I'm a little brother, still am, right? So now we'll go back to that amazing photo that you saw earlier. This is high school. This is my senior picture. This is my sister's senior picture. We're about 4 years apart. Yes, you could tell. We were in the what?
The left one's you?
No, this was me.
Yeah. Figure.
Yeah, the big hair, that was me, totally. Yeah. No, the left one is me. The right one is my sister, right? Yes, she was in the 80s, I was in the 90s. That gives you a little sense. And yes, we had color photography back then. It wasn't completely black and white. I'm not that old yet, right? But I'm a little brother. And I absolutely loved and still love my big sister to this day. But all through my life, I have been completely compared to my sister. I originally grew up in Florida. I'm a beach kid originally before I moved to Texas. And when you're in Florida, you play a different set of sports than you do out here. Number one, you swim. That's a big thing. And we were both swimmers. She was always faster in the pool. She was always more athletic. She was just the better swimmer than I was, and I was always compared to her. And then in school, I was always 4 years behind her, and I was always compared to my sister. In fact, I had multiple teachers in school tell me, why can't you be more like your sister? Over and over and over again. As a matter of fact, I remember this story really well. I was in 5th grade, and we were sitting in class one, and I'll never forget this teacher's name, Mr. Blatt, absolutely horrible name to this day. I'm sitting in class, and he hands out everybody a postcard and a piece of tape. He tells everybody, take the postcard, write your name down on it, stick it on the back of your chair. That's what we did. Everybody wrote down their names, we stuck them on the back of the chair, and he called up a number of students to the front of the classroom. He said, everybody, you guys come on up. It was probably about maybe 6 or 7. I don't quite remember the numbers. And I don't remember everything that he specifically said. But here's what I do remember. He told all of the kids that were sitting back in the class, he said, I want everybody to look up at these kids in the front of the class, because these are the kids that are going to fail my class. And as they look and they see their seat, that's where they're going to be sitting here next year. Do you think I was pissed? I mean, mad. Sorry, middle schoolers. I was upset. I was mad. Do you think that messed with my head? You better believe it did. I was mad. I was angry. I was upset. I was ashamed. My mom had a few words to share with that teacher that day when I came home and shared what had happened. But my whole life, I have always heard, you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not faster. You're going to fail. I heard this over and over again growing up as a kid. And it messed with my head. Come a little bit later into high school, I played football. Guess what? Not fast enough, not strong enough, not quick enough. I sucked. Heard it over and over again. I tried theater. I thought, well, let's just try this stuff. I jumped into theater because I had a couple friends who did it. And you know what happened? I didn't actually suck. Thanks for that confidence, Grady. I appreciate it. Yeah. No, I didn't actually suck. I finally heard somebody say, hey, you're actually good at something. I thought, well, this is the first I've heard this before. As a matter of fact, I ended up going to, I auditioned for several movies. I auditioned for an acting college. I got accepted, and I threw it away. I got a scholarship for theater to a junior college. I did really well. But in my head, I was always telling myself, I suck. That I'm not good enough at this. And I threw my scholarship away. I wasted it. I didn't care. Right? I didn't care about it. I completely just blew it away. And later on in life, I just had all of these stories, and I talked to Matt about this. He likes to call them these soundtracks that built up in my head that I wasn't good at stuff. Later on in life, I met an amazing woman. We've been married for 22 years. And when I met her, she started to show me what Jesus was like. I didn't know who Jesus was. I went to church, but I didn't know what Jesus was or this relationship with Jesus meant. She was kind, she was compassionate, she was caring, and I started to see what this whole Jesus thing meant and was about. So I started to dig in and I started to understand a little bit more about what this whole thing was. I knew she was it. I thought this was it. Oh my goodness, I found the woman I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And she said, you know, you got to figure this out. This Jesus means a lot to me. And you need to figure out where your relationship is with him before we move together for the rest of our lives. The internal battles that I had with myself in my head of I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough for Jesus. I don't know Scripture. I don't know stories of the Bible. I can't give you quote for quote, verse for verse on things. I couldn't understand this. So again, I'm back to telling myself I'm not good enough for Jesus. I don't understand this. But as I started to dig in a little bit more and learn a little bit more about who Jesus is through her, I started to learn and understand that you don't have to have everything perfect. Jesus sees you as you are, and He says that you are good enough. And as a matter of fact, in Romans 5:8, let's see if I can get this right. Okay, I messed up last time. In Romans 5:8, he says, "But God demonstrates His own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." Do you know what this means? This means that we're all broken. We're all sinners. I am not perfect. And God sent Jesus to die for me as the imperfect person that I was. And I started to realize to myself, holy cow, if the God of all creation sent this amazing person who says I am good enough for Him that He'll die for me, well, holy cow, that's amazing. So I started to lean in a little bit more and commit to this and learn about who this Jesus was. I've had a lot of revelations in my own life over these last couple years. I've had the opportunity to lead a men's group on Tuesday nights, work with a bunch of guys who are dads, who are fathers, who are husbands, who are sons, and lean into this with them and do life with them. And I've learned a lot about myself and who I am through this journey. And what I've started to realize is Jesus doesn't want perfection. Jesus wants a relationship. Right? Jesus wants a relationship with you. And I know sometimes we sit in here and we talk about this thing like, what is a relationship with somebody that I can't see? Somebody that I can't hug, I can't shake a hand with? It's hard to imagine that sometimes, right? But if you think about your own relationships in life, imagine if you had a girlfriend or a boyfriend that you never talked to, that you never wrote notes to, that you never read their notes from them. That'd be a horrible relationship. Jesus just wants you to spend time with Him. He wants you to spend time in understanding His Word and what that is, and that's where you start to build that relationship out. Fast forward to where I am now, still a father. I'm still a little brother, thank God. I'm still a son. I have both my parents. Yes, I'm in an amazing profession. I'm in the cybersecurity world. I love what I get to do in an amazing field. And I'm where I am today in my life because of Jesus, because Jesus said that I am good enough. I'm good enough for this world. I'm good enough for Him. And that's why I am and who I am today and where I am because of Him. I'm going to ask this question. I know the answer to this based on what Parker asked just a second ago. The podcast that just popped up not too long ago with Les McGee. Who watched it? Just a couple hands. Highly encourage you to go watch it. An amazing conversation. Les McGee said in the podcast, "Don't look to yourself for assurance of God's love for you. Look to the Word for His assurance in how much He loves you, because He loves you. Don't look to the world, because the world is constantly going to tell you that you are not good enough. The world is constantly going to tell you that you're not smart enough, just like it did for me." And that comfort in knowing who Jesus is will bring you along and so far once you start to build that relationship with Him. I love that podcast. Along those lines, this is really where I dig into and I think about this quote. This actually just came up a couple weeks ago and it made me think about my journey with Christ. Your value does not increase or decrease based on what others might say or think about you. Your value comes from the ingredients that God used to make and save you. You are all children of God in here. God loves you and all your imperfections. Jesus died for you so that you will be saved in that fashion, just because He absolutely loves you. So my encouragement, when life pushes on you and tells you those things, dig into the Word. Spend some time and understand what He's trying to tell you and that He loves you. Maybe if you've never listened to some worship music, spend some time, jump into it, listen to it, find something that feeds your soul and push back on the world. Tell them, I don't care what you say, because I know that Jesus loves me. And God made me absolutely amazing to do amazing things in that relationship. So, back to Paul. Paul did some horrific things in his life, as we talked about, right? He did some horrific things to Christians in terms of persecution and so forth. But he turned his life around and he realized he's got to do some things differently. And he had the opportunity to share his story about his transformation. So I want to challenge you this week to think about what your own story might be. And I'll be honest with you, when I had the opportunity, when Matt and I started talking about this, I didn't have a story. Like, I didn't go to prison. Jude, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I didn't get a chance to share a prison story. But I never had a big bad story of I went to prison or I fell in a trap with drugs or anything like that. But everybody has a story to tell. Think about what your story is. Be like Paul. Don't be ashamed to share your story with your friends, your family, your peers, your coworkers in some cases. Think about what that is as you're making your way through your own journey. So if you're like me, and you hear these soundtracks, I still hear it today. As a matter of fact, this week, well, actually it was last week, my work came to me, was like, hey, we like what you do. We want to expand your role more. We want you to take on more responsibility. Guess what started popping up in my head? I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't handle this. And I started digging back into the Word. I started spending time with Him and listening and hearing those things that, you know what, you are good enough. If you're like me and you hear those stories in your head, push back. Come talk to me. Come talk to one of your leaders about the things that you're dealing with, these voices and these words that you're hearing that might be pushing back on you in life. Be like Paul. Be eager and be unashamed to tell your story. That's what I got.